Sorry if you can hear a siren in the background. That's all the action going on in NYC.
Welcome to New York City, right? All right, Island, start the game.
That's
Is the blood?
a good classic start right there. Look at these classic islands and mountains that are being played.
Yeah,
Uh,
really.
Rift Bolt on suspend seems good. That's one thing, right? Like, it's so interesting to me in a Delver play. Like, when you know you're playing against Delver and they don't use their turn 1 mana to cast a Delver, like, it's like guaranteed that they're going to have a turn 2 threat. Because you never keep a hand without a threat.
Yeah. The open deck list thing is in play a little bit here, where maybe you consider a hand with no creatures because you have counter magic and you know what your opponent's on, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But generally, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, an end step brainstorm here, I don't know, what do you think? It's telegraphing to me that he's land light.
Yeah, or feels like he has no plays. Well, he found a land. That much we
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I assume that an end step brainstorm without a Delver on the table is just telegraphing that you're land light, and then he got out of it, which is really good. Or his hand is just very much flushed with cantrips, and he needs to spend his mana effectively so he can get to the board because he knows he's in a fast matchup.
Yeah, I mean, knowing he has a fetch land in hand, maybe felt like a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's also possible that like if he has enough action in his hand and he just wants to be mana efficient, given how his threats are going to get stacked, that he was only looking to get one card out of his hand as opposed to cleaning up two. So brainstorming an end step so you can then untap and slam a threat is a reasonable line. It's like so interesting, right? Like it seems so innocuous that an end step brainstorm can lead to can telegraph so many different possibilities.
Yep. Is he trying to hit Boston or Sprite Dragon here, I wonder?
Going after Sprite Dragon,
Yep.
which I think is fine because once that Sprite Dragon gets out of range, it's just not.
Yeah, it's quick clock.
Multiple cards, yeah.
Chain you.
Just a bunch of lava spikes.
Yep.
He passes back, holding up. I assume that's a Bloodstained Mire. It's definitely just some kind of red fetch.
I think that's a Scalding Tarn, actually.
Scalding Tarn.
But it doesn't really matter. They're looking for mountains regardless.
3 mana, no plays. And chat him inside.
That doesn't feel good if you're in this matchup. I don't feel.
A
I think you
third
want to be
mana-
dropping dudes.
Yeah, a third mana doesn't feel good, but at the same time, if he's just got a bunch of, I mean, he could theoretically just flash in a Brazen Bar. I mean, there isn't really anything game one that Petty Theft is going to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and Shadowman also, obviously, with the being able to see 3 price to progress already is just like, I'm going to have a clean mana base and not have to worry about that card.
All right, a fetch here. Is he gonna tap out for a 2-drop and get dazed here? Make your prediction now.
If he taps out for a 2-drop and gets dazed, that seems. I mean, I think like you naturally. Yeah, I guess he is. It's interesting because like leading with the Goblin Guide as opposed. I feel like the better threat to land is the Eidolon.
I 100% agree.
And so not walking into it because it looks like Shadowman's thinking about what to respond with here. I mean, that fetch land is going to allow for, at worst, this Goblin Guide turning into a Scry if it doesn't just put him up a card.
Yeah.
I mean, also,
could he even afford to just tap his 2 lands for days just to not have to ever fetch, save that 1 life, and still potentially drop a 3-drop next turn if he wants to?
yeah, it's interesting because since he didn't use his mana, he's just going to hardcast. He's going to Petty Theft. He's petty thefting the Goblin Guide in response. That's interesting.
Huh.
So this Eidolon sticks.
See, now, okay, so many things happen here. Greg could have swung with Goblin Guide first.
Yeah, there was a lot of different sequencings that could have led to a bunch of different outcomes in terms of life totals for sure.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily saying anybody messed up, but things maybe could have been done in a more ideal way on both sides. I'm not sure.
Well, it depends because I think if Greg was, I mean, there's also the possibility that Greg was hoping to beta days. I don't know what he would be hoping to beta days for, but like it seems weird to when you don't have to just running out your Eidolon, which is one of your better cards in a against a cantrip deck that has no threats on the table, that you would throw it into a daze when you don't have to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If he swings, he does give Boston a guide trigger. That's true. That's true.
I don't. Would the guide trigger make too much of a difference outside of because like Shadowman wouldn't even have to fetch until the end step if he didn't want to, and if he gets to go up a land, he gets to go up a land. But if he's going to brainstorm in response, then a brainstorm in the face of if an Eidolon is already on the table, that's good.
Did you happen to see what card was on top just now?
I couldn't tell.
I missed it.
It was too dark. I was looking at it, but it was too dark.
Okay.
But if we want, I'll to just note like what was the rationale for sequencing Goblin God into Eidolon on turn 4?
Yeah.
My guess is Shadowman has to be flooded. I mean, he's playing a Wasteland when I guess that's fine. I mean, double Brazen Borrower against Burn isn't that delightful of a draw, but he played out the Wasteland, which I guess means that he'll be able to two-spell in like going Bolt your guy, Brazen Borrower. There's the daze. Okay, so Brazen Borrower bounces the Eidolon, and then it gets dazed. So I wonder if he had that daze at the time, and he just wanted to cash in his Brazen Borrowers for tempo, which is possible.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what he was thinking about when it was cast a turn ago.
I haven't played Legacy Burn ever in my life, but does it seem at least correct to not play around days at all?
I think so. I remember I'm forgetting his name, and that's unfortunate at this moment. But he top-8'd Grand Prix Atlanta with Burn.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I'm forgetting his name, which is unfortunate. Chat, help us out. But I remember when he was interviewed like a ton after that event, he said that one of the ways that he would steamroll Delver is he just never allowed them to cash in their dazes or their spell pierces.
Interesting.
So it's like you have so much removal that outside of like them sticking a Goy for something. Granted, this was also the Ren 6 GP, but that was one thing where he was just like, if you don't let them cash in their dazes or their burn or their spell pierces on any of your burn spells, then at a certain point when they get low enough, you just get to like play through them with what's the spell mastery card?
Exquisite Firecraft.
Yeah. So it's just like you have the option to blank those cards because you're an all basics deck, so the wastelands are futile against you.
Yep. So I just want to point out, Boston had a Bolt on top of his deck. Before the second guide trigger resolved, he fetched, and then there was a Wasteland on top, which he was able to retrieve. So he chose not to keep the Bolt on top.
So we know Brian has 4 cards in hand, one of which is a Wasteland that he just found off a Goblin Guide, and he has another Wasteland on the table. So like that additional colorless mana, given that he has 2 Brazen Borrowers on Adventure, is not really going to do anything. So that's just another card that's in his hand. So if he can convert it with a Brainstorm, that's good. Otherwise, that Goblin Guide isn't going to be doing isn't going to be doing too much. He's running out another Eidolon in the face of a daze, but we're going to see him just cast a Brazen Borrower in response.
Yep. So Boston took 4 in case it was missed. Boston took 4 from the Goblin Guides because there was a little bit of a break there while we resolved that, and then Eidolon dropped.
In response, he cast the Brazen Borrower. I mean, unfortunately, that Brazen Borrower can only block flyers, so one of the few times we see a drawback on a Mythic.
Yeah.
Phil is from Eternal Dirtles. Wow. Yeah, that's me.
Hang on, players. I don't have Boston's feet up yet.
Sorry, what color deck would you like Spice for? I believe this is turn 6.
Yep.
And it looks like we got a scoop.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. We weren't able to see the ending there, unfortunately. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah.
Would be my guess. I mean, I don't know. It's like you can pretty much bring in whatever you wanted out of your sideboard by cutting Wastelands and I guess Sprite Dragons, but maybe just cutting any number of threats is wrong.
Spending Riftbolt again.
Hold on, is Brian's feed down for you again?
No, it's good.
All right, I'm going to take 1 second to reopen this.
Okay. You didn't miss much so far. He just fetched Flooded Strand. Gets a Volk. Gets the Volk, so he's no longer playing around Price of Progress. I guess he's assuming Greg sided those out.
That's a safe bet.
What's that?
That's a safe bet to me.
Yeah. Safe bet. Back to what I was saying. I don't even remember if I finished my thoughts. So many things have happened. I was talking to the players. But creatures are gain life spells and counter spells in this matchup because if your opponent doesn't stop your creatures, especially like Sprite Dragon, unchecked Sprite Dragon, you can win the game with it. If you don't have creatures, you can't win the game.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, yeah, I guess you're happy. Like even though it would be a trade down in mana, you're still happy to do it.
Yeah, like imagine the scenario. I play my second turn Sprite Dragon. I swing for 1. They untap and they chain lightning it, like we saw in game 1. I'm like, cool. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. You know.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't at me. You know. I'd rather them chain lightning my Sprite Dragon, TBH. Chat trying to figure out which cards were invocations. Yes, Daze was an invocation, so we hit that off the bingo card. Fluster was not. Chain Lightning was, so we hit that.
We had a Scalding Tarn Expedition.
Yes.
I get that that's not the same thing, but
All right. Riftbolt.
a Wasteland. At least one Wasteland stayed in. I guess there's also only so many cards you could cut for Chatterman.
Yeah, you do need lands.
Goblin Guide.
Yo, Vebo, thanks for the follow. Here's
This
Goblin
Goblin
Guide.
Guide is playing with no red mana up, so it'll get in at least a hit and a second Goblin Guide.
Yikes.
Well, if he played a Wasteland because he had mana troubles, he's going to get a look right now, so that's nice. I mean, taking 4 to the face isn't great, but
Yeah. Let's see if there's a Daze here. I wouldn't even have to think about it. I'm assuming he doesn't have one because he has to think, right? If you have one, you're slamming it, no?
if you can trade a Daze for a threat, a recurring threat of damage, I think it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Wasteland is kind of a life gain spell if your opponent does that. Yes, that is a good call. I mean, if we assume that he boarded, if he's going to board them out, then less so. But yes, there is the famous P. Sully Wasteland maneuver to kill Ross Merriam in an old SEG clip that is classic.
Something being thought about here.
My guess is the Goblin Guide is still on the stack.
Maybe he's thinking about forcing it. That's the only thing he could be thinking about right now.
I think it's a reasonable thing to do.
I think so too. But maybe what he's thinking about throwing away sucks
Excuse me.
to throw away. We shall see.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, let's say it's like his one cantrip. Considering that he doesn't have a way in his deck to clear the table of multiple threats at a time, he needs individual spells, that allowing Greg to go wide is just going to be a position where he loses the game. And I don't think that Brazen Bar was ever going to get any better than this.
Yeah. All right, so he chose to force it, pitching Brazen Borrower, and a Preordain got revealed, and then he took 2 more.
Preordain's pretty good. It's like
Yeah.
maybe the argument for not doing I mean, he didn't have it last turn, but there's argument that you want the Force of Will to be able to protect something like an Arcanist, because I think your best board states are protecting your Arcanist. A, when it comes down, it can block a 2/2, but B, because it's going to be the thing that lets you go up cards and make favorable exchanges.
Yeah. Is Boston worried about Sulfuric Vortex? Could he be thinking that... I mean, I don't even know if Greg would bring it in, but maybe that's what he was thinking about.
Yeah,
Isn't that a possibility?
I haven't played much Burn in my day, but bringing in 3-mana sorcery speed cards against Delver that don't actually shut off any of the things that they're doing against you. We know that there's no life gain in the Blue Red Delver's side, and we know from open deck lists that Greg knows that.
Yep.
I think for the most part, outside of like the Flusterstorm out of Blue Red Delver's side, and then the swap that we were talking about with Vapor Snags, it doesn't really strike me as too much different in terms of the way the cards line up in games 1 and 2.
Yep.
So a third land playing around a Daze here and now with an Eidolon.
Yeah, that's rough for Boston. That thing's going to do a lot of damage.
It is, but the fact that he gets to untap with his Arcanist, and the Arcanist saved him 2 points of damage off that Goblin Guide, so that Arcanist for 2 mana already saved him 2 life, right?
Yep.
And now he's got options because he's got counterplay.
Yep.
So we know that his hand of, 5 cards? 4 cards?
Approximately.
4 or 5 cards. We know it's all gas, because one of which is a preordain, because he didn't play a land last turn.
Right. Also, I mean, well, Greg has 3 lands. I was going to say, is it worth wasting here and then just not doing anything in passing?
I think if you're in Brian's position and you have the option to wasteland, I think I would want to do it when I know I would be able to fight a Fire Blast. Because if I can waste the Volk, have Greg get baited into playing a Fire Blast, sacrificing another mountain, and then counter the Fire Blast, I can get... One, I can force Greg to Fire Blast at an inopportune time for him, but also catch another land to set him back, and then I'll be able to outpace him by just playing more spells a turn.
Yeah. Surgical.
Bringing in Surgical.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
What is he targeting? Force?
That is another question that I want to ask is, why? What would you bring out? What would you take out to play Surgical?
I have no idea. So he targeted Force. Boston's hand is Delver, Dreadhorde, Brainstorm, Preordain, and Brazen Borrower.
So he brought in the
Forces are out, so he's showing what he brought in now. A Braid, Flusterstorm, a Braid.
2 Braids and a Fluster. What were the cards that he brought it out? Oh, he's going to show. Okay. He brought it out Chain Lightning, and then I couldn't see the other 2.
Oh, Chain Lightning's smart to take out. I totally missed that when I was looking through before.
Oh, but you can't get forked? Sure.
Yeah.
Chain Lightning and 2 Wastelands. Okay, yeah, so it's kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah. I forgot about the Chain Lightning thing on my first pass, but yeah that makes total sense. Because they can way more easily hold up the red. What's that?
Boarding out 2 Wastelands and then still drawing a Wasteland is obviously a feel bad, but it does have a target on the table.
So now he drops a second Eidolon.
I mean, that second Eidolon, I imagine. What are the odds here? I mean, he's got to spend his mana and get a spell and use his. He's got to use mana for his spells right now. He's got a lot of 1/3s. He's gonna bounce. I assume the Eidolon. Yeah. He'll be able to play another 1/3 and just stall the ground. And then there's a Fire Blast because it's known. So that way, and then he's gonna just not give him an opportunity to play that Wasteland.
Makes sense.
Yeah, boarding in Surgical does seem really bad because it doesn't actually do anything. However, it's feeling to me after watching these 2 games that with the Blue-Red Delver not building a sideboard with Burn in mind at all, that it's just a very lopsided matchup.
Yeah. Ponder was on top.
Particularly if you're not in green, to be able to A, play Oko for life gain, or just more fatties like Tarmogoyf to hold down the ground.
Boston now at 7 in a very precarious life total at the moment. Double fetch for Greg.
Brian was also kind of tight on mana all game. He had the Wasteland as a second mana and then never drew another source. But I guess has also never really had an opportunity to spend his cantrips effectively. I mean, a mono Eidolon, or I guess that's the Eidolon that he had bounced before. So Land off the top would be good. That's a good first step. He's going to be able to save 2 damage and block, but then he's going to go to 5. And Greg is at how many cards left? It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. All right, let's check in with the players.
He goes down to 5, but then that fetch means that he can't do anything.